Join Carol Davies on Global Voice Radio, the host of Only the Best for You. Be a change maker and unlock the secret to your best life.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast, Only the Best for You, here on Global Voice Radio. My name is Carol Davies of the Passion Motivator Coaching Company. I am so pleased each week to share with you the best information and speakers about how you can be best you can be and be a change maker to make the world and yourself a better place. Today I am reporting to you on a topic that has long intrigued me, dealing with the inner child. This is part 2 of a series I started on the one that I reported on last week. So this is working with our inner child, part 2, doing inner child work. This covers several interesting techniques that will take your work with working with your inner child to greater depth. Just to review a little bit, no matter how big or small, almost all of us have experienced some kind of trauma as children. These traumas could vary from having your favorite stuffed toy thrown in the trash, to being abandoned by your best childhood friend, to being physically or emotionally abused by your parents, or any number of upsetting things. Inner child work is a vital component for self-healing because it reconnects us with a wounded element of ourselves, the child within. When we reconnect with this fragmented part of ourselves, we can begin to discover the root of many of our fears, phobias, insecurities, and sabotaging life patterns. This is where the true healing happens. Also, you'll be surprised by what you find and discover through inner child work. Instead of simply looking at a symptom of your pain, you'll go right to the core and review and reveal when a fear, phobia, or certain life pattern first began. It is important to have reconnected with your inner child in the past and see how childhood trauma impacts with you on a physical, emotional, mental, and even sexual level. Now, I want to expand on some powerful healing techniques you can use to soothe this delicate place within us. There are various types of childhood trauma. It's important to note that these include the physical, emotional, and mental varieties. Also, when a childhood trauma is severe or repeated enough, it can result in damage to your inner child with a wounded psyche. This can cause such issues as depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, phobias, destructive behavioral patterns, and even chronic illnesses. Here are some examples of childhood trauma. Being hit or smacked by your parents or grandparents. Having an emotionally available parent who withholds affection. Being punished through kicking, shaking, biting, burning, hair pulling, pinching, scratching, or even washing out the mouth with soap. Being the recipient of molestation, shown pornography, or any other type of sexual contact from a parent, relative, or friend. Being the child of divorce. Being given inappropriate or burdensome responsibilities, such as caring for your parents. Not being fed or provided a safe place to live from your parents. Abandonment. Your caretakers leaving you alone for long periods of time without a babysitter. Emotional neglect, for example, not being nurtured, encouraged, or supported. Being deliberately called names or verbally insulted. Denigration of your personality. Destruction of personal belongings. Excessive demands. Humiliation. There are many more examples of childhood trauma, but I just wanted to provide you with a few to give you an idea of what inner child work deals with. It's also important to remember that our parents weren't the only ones responsible for provoking childhood trauma. Our grandparents, brothers, sisters, extended family members, family friends, and childhood friends may also have played a part. So, what is inner child work? Inner child work is a process of contacting, understanding, embracing, and healing your inner child. Your inner child represents your first original self that entered into this world. It contains your capacity to experience wonder, joy, innocence, sensitivity, and playfulness. Unfortunately, we live in a society that forces us to repress our inner child and grow up. But the truth is that while most adults physically are grown up, they have never quite reached emotional or psychological adulthood. In other words, most grown-ups aren't really adults at all. This leaves most people in a state of childish fears, angers, and traumas that fester away in the unconscious mind for decades. When we deny and tune out the voice of the child within, we accumulate heavy psychological baggage. This unexplored and resolved baggage causes us to experience problems such as mental illnesses, physical ailments, and relational dysfunctions. In fact, it could be said that the lack of conscious relatedness to our own inner child is one of the major causes of the severe issues we see in today's society. From the brutal way we treat the environment to the cruel way we talk to ourselves, we have become completely separated from our original innocence. Now I'm going to talk about 4 simple ways that you can work with your inner child. Learning to work with your inner child isn't about becoming childish again. It is about reconnecting with the childlike side. In other words, there's a big difference between being childish and childlike. Being childish can be thought of as behaving in an immature or naive way. Being childlike, on the other hand, can be thought of as a state of purity and innocence. We all have the capacity to experience our original innocence. That period in our lives when we saw the world with openness and wonder. In order to remove the guilt, shame, fear, hatred, self-loathing, and anger that we carry with us, we have to heal the child within. To do this, we must earn the trust of our inner child through love and self-nurturing. Here are 4 of the most powerful ways to perform inner child work. 1 is speak to your inner child. Another is look at pictures of yourself as a child. 3 is recreate what you love to do as a child. And 4 is to do an inner journey. I'd like to speak briefly about how to speak to your inner child. Excuse me. What you can do is you acknowledge your inner child and let it know that you're there for it. Treat it with kindness and respect. Some nurturing things you could say to your inner child include, for example, I love you, I hear you, I'm sorry, thank you, I forgive you. Make a habit of talking to your inner child. You could also communicate through journal work by asking your inner child a question and then writing down the response. If you do this on a regular basis, you could keep a journal specially just for inner child work. And if you write down the question and the answers you receive plus a date, you can over time go back and review and see what is coming up as issues, and this will give you more ideas on what to work in the future. Secondly, look at yourself in pictures of yourself as a child. Go through old photograph albums and rediscover what your younger self looked like. Let that image be burned into your brain because it will serve you well throughout the rest of your inner child work. You might even like to put photos of yourself next to your bedside table, in your wallet, or around the house, just to remind yourself of your inner child's presence. 3, recreate what you'd love to do as a child. Sit down and think about what you loved to do as a child. Maybe you liked climbing trees, playing with toy blocks, cuddling toy bears, or eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Take time to include whatever activity you love to do as a child and include this in your present life. Through inner child work, people have told me that they've connected to sides of themselves that they never even knew existed as adults. This discovery is truly life-changing. It's important that you make a habit of this playtime and explore any embarrassment or silliness you feel towards it. It's completely normal to feel a bit foolish at first, but it's important to keep an open mind. Try different activities that you remember you really liked to do as a child and see how it makes you feel. And number 4, do an inner journey. One of the most powerful ways to reconnect with your inner child is to heal childhood traumas and is to do an inner journey. For beginners, I recommend 2 types of inner journeys, those done through meditation and those done through visualization. In order to do these inner journeys, it's important that you first gain the trust of your inner child through the previous activities that were mentioned. Once you have developed a strong connection to your inner child, you can then ask it to reveal what earlier life circumstances created the trauma you're struggling with today. Now here's how to do a meditation journey. Connecting to your inner child through meditation is a passive process. Simply breathe deeply, relax, allow yourself to witness your thoughts, and ask your question. For example, you might like to ask, Dear inner child, when was the first time I experienced trauma in my life? Allow yourself to witness the thoughts that rise and fall within your mind. Your inner child may or may not decide to reveal the answer to you. Remember to be patient, loving, and accepting. If your inner child doesn't want to reveal the answer, embrace that. It's important that your inner child feels safe, secure, and ready. You might like to repeat your question every now and then if nothing of significance arises inside of your mind. This process could take anywhere from a couple of minutes to an hour or more. If you continually keep getting no answer to a particular question, it might be time to go and seek outside help, either from a counselor, trusted friend, or religious advisor. This might indeed be something because it may be an area you don't feel safe in exploring on your own. And one tip, in order to do the inner child meditation journey, it's helpful to have experience meditating. Learning to witness your thoughts can take a lot of practice. So if you're not used to meditating, you might struggle with this technique. You could then decide to do a visualization journey, because this is a more active way to connect with your inner child and earlier life traumas and go through an actual visualization. To connect with your inner child through visualization, you must create a power place or a safe place. To do this, visualize a beautiful garden or any type of place in which you feel safe, empowered, and whole. Keep this image in your mind. Enter into it. Let it surround you. This is going to be a place you go to again and again if you continue to do visualization journeys. So once you have in mind the image of your safe place or power place, enter it, and then invite your inner child to speak with you. Here are a few steps. Relax, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Imagine you're walking down a staircase. At the bottom of the staircase is your power place or safe place. In this place, you feel strong, safe, and supported. Spend a bit of time in your power place. Soak it in. What does it look like, smell like, and sound like? After you have acquainted yourself with your power place, imagine that your younger self has entered, perhaps through a door or a waterfall. Hug your younger self and make them feel at home. When you're ready, ask your inner child your question, such as, when was the first time you or I felt sad or scared? You might like to phrase the question in child terminology. Wait for their response. Listen closely. When they're finished, make sure you hug them, thank them, and then tell them how much they mean to you. Say goodbye then. Then leave your power place and ascend up the stairs. Return to normal consciousness. Write down what you learned during this process. These are very basic steps, but they provide a good outline of how to perform an inner child visualization journey. It would be a good idea to keep a special notepad or some paper to write down notes if you do these visualization journeys regularly. Date them and then see what you learned from them. You could review them over time. It's actually very, very illuminating. So as children, we perceive the world very differently from our adult selves. Because of this, many of the things we presently assume never hurt us as children may have left deep scars. That's why it's important to never make assumptions about your inner child. Through inner child work, you can learn to grieve, heal, and resolve any sources of trauma you've been unconsciously holding on to for years. This can liberate you and allow you to live a life of true adulthood, emotional balance, and well-being. I hope these few tips have inspired you to reconnect with your inner child and that you will learn to heal some of the traumas from your childhood. It's not always possible to heal everything, but think of those things that are affecting you the most and take one issue at a time and work on that. Don't rush the process. It's going to be slow but steady. I truly hope that you will find some great takeaways from my thoughts today. If you want further information or want to talk about more ideas with me, contact me through my website, www.thepassionmotivator.com, or by email at coachcaroldavies@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Remember, you can change your life at any time and become the success you want to be. I look forward to connecting with you again next week. Bye now.
Tune in every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern for Only the Best for You with Carol Davies on Global Voice Radio.